I can tell you how Martin Scorsese gives me, as an actor, his notes after he sees a scene. He watches in a black box, watches the monitor, blind as a bat, not really, but he's come out of his box and it's rather bright, so he's guided by his assistant. He's led across a mass of cables and hazards, and he stands in front of me and he says, "Do you want to do another one?" Simple as that. As pure and simple as that. Instead of boring you to sleep with endless notes that are unplayable that some arrogant directors force on the actor. He said, "Do you want to do another one?" And I say, "Yeah." Or if I say no, he says, "Great, let's move on." Gandhi. Richard Attenborough invited me to have lunch with him. But the extraordinary coincidence is that I was reading an illustrated biography of Mahatma Gandhi the week he invited me to his house. So I was looking at photographs of this beautiful, great man, and then Attenborough called me and invited me to consider playing him. I remember saying to Richard, Lord Attenborough, he died, bless him, "I'm reading the biography of Mahatma Gandhi while we're talking." And he said, "Of course you are." He was surrounded by sublime coincidences. I remember Attenborough invited me to watch some newsreel footage of him, and he's very well documented, recordings, photographs, and newsreel footage, because he was an iconic character. And I watched 5 hours of newsreel footage at one sitting, decided that it was impossible, left the cinema, and didn't look at any more footage ever again. But Attenborough made the impossible possible. It was like standing at the foothills of the largest ice-covered mountain you've ever seen, thinking, I'll go up 1 foot and slide down 5. But he got me through it.
I will fast as a penance for my part in arousing such emotions, and I will not stop until they stop.
I think that the coincidence of loving him deeply as a man to portray did empower me through those long, demanding days in India. And the people of India were enormously generous. You see, there was no CGI. Can you believe that? That is 400,000 people at his funeral. That felt extraordinary to me. 20 years in the preparation, and then like a bolt out of a catapult, he let go, bang, and he hit the target, I think. Modestly, I think he really hit the target. Beautiful film. That was the golden door into the film industry for me. Schindler's List. Oh, there's a beautiful story about Schindler's List and Schindler's Ark, as you rightly call it. I was working with Steve Zalian, who wrote a beautiful film called Searching for Bobby Fischer. We had a scene where I was mixed in amongst great Middle European chess players. And one of the chess players in the scene had this rather worn paperback book in his hands. And he handed it to me, and if I may, he had a lovely Middle European accent. He said, "I want you to read this." And he handed it to me as if it was some holy relic. It was beautiful. So I took the book, and it was called Schindler's Ark, and I turned the pages and was utterly, utterly hypnotized by the book. And 3 days later, Stephen Zalian said to me, "I want you to read this," and handed me Schindler's List, directed by Steven Spielberg. So again, I was fatalistically a tiny step ahead of the game. Sometimes happens in life. It's quite beautiful.
The list is life. All around its margins lies the gulf.
I remember meeting Steven Spielberg, and we discussed the possibility of me playing the role. I had already played Simon Wiesenthal, the great Nazi hunter, in a series, and I knew that to enter the Holocaust and enter that story demanded a massive amount of integrity, humility, and energy. And I said to Steven, "Steven, what do you want? What is my narrative function in this film?" I knew my answer, and he said, "Conscience," and I said, "Witness," and we shook hands and I was on board. It was almost the same word. Iron Man 3. The head of Marvel Kevin Feig came to see me at my house, and he explained the twist to me. I found it absolutely thrilling to play an actor playing a performance. Thrilling.
Just a role? The Mandarin? See, it's not real.
I did base him on some of the actors I rubbed shoulders with in the Royal Shakespeare Company. It is his finest hour. It is his greatest performance. I think, in all humility, I must say that Trevor is quite a splendid actor.
Well, I panicked, but then I handled it.
Bugsy. I think of Meyer Lansky, and I think of him coming from an embattled shtetl in Russia. The Jews of Russia were constantly harassed, pogroms, and then followed, of course, by Einsatzgruppen in World War II. But Lansky left Russia quite young, came to America, so I always had in him the exiled Russian Jew who knew how to look after his own. Because in the shtetls, in the Jewish villages in Russia, you had to look after your own. And you had to know how to wheel and deal. You had to know, in order to survive, where to get your meat, your bread, where to get your gasoline, where to get safety, where to get weaponry.
It really does affect my opinion of your ability to administrate when you get yourself involved in this type of detail.
You knew how to work your community. That was translated by Meyer Lansky into looking after his team. So I did not play him as a gangster. I played him as a patriarch.
Ben has only one problem, the same problem he's had since we were all kids together, sticking up crap games in the streets. He doesn't respect money.
I worked with a wonderful dialect coach, and also had occasion to watch a little bit of him on newsreel when he was older than I played him. And I'll never forget this. Somebody said, "Hey, Meyer, how you doing?" And he stopped on the pavement and said, "Just what you see." That's one of my favorite answers. When people say, "How are you?" I say, "Just what you see." Sexy beast. I was dubbed as bipolar because people could not believe that a sane person could play Mahatma Gandhi and Don Logan.
Whoever stinky torture of him was the devil now, because it's so disgusting. Fucking hell.
Beautiful writing, great director, and a wonderful cast to work with. Being a great lover of Shakespeare, and having played Othello but not Iago, I did see that Don Logan was definitely Iago. His cry, his scream was, "I love you, why don't you love me?" Another cry from the script is, "I don't want you to be happy, why should I?" So my approach to him, in all humility and compassion, was that Don was an abused child, unhealed, who would go on to scream for the rest of his adult life. Therefore, I had a compassionate link with him and understood his capacity for revenge and violence against a fate that had abused him as a child. So I got quite fond of Don. Being a parent, I love to observe baby steps. The first time a child stands up and walks is a beautiful moment. Not in any disrespectful way. Jonathan Glazer was taking his first steps as a feature film director, and that can be exhilarating company because they've no rule book. Nothing is a copy of a copy of a copy. Nothing, "Oh, I've done this before, it works." No. Freshly discovering every syllable and every gesture with you. Beautiful. Jungle Book. I love John's approach to the original Jungle Book story and the original trilogy of books. And I think that he was brave to face the darker side of the movie and the story. It's a story about a heroic orphan. Really beautiful. When I am doing a voiceover, I'm recording an animated feature, everything has to come through the voice, and your body is taken care of by a set of animators. So my physical language is completely irrelevant to the film, although, as I'm doing now, talking, my body does come into play, naturally. But any amount of this will not compensate for what's going on the screen. It has to be through the voice.
I realise you weren't born a wolf, but couldn't you at least act like one?
So you need to be schooled or learned or have the great privilege of having worked with great directors with the Royal Shakespeare Company and great voice teachers, voice coaches, and use all those skills for these wonderful, wonderful creatures. Perpetual Grace Limited. My character is Pastor Byron Brown. He's a predatory creature, a wolf, a leopard, tiger, highly cunning, will have moments of enormous stillness before leaping upon his prey. In the guise of being a pastor, a priest, milks people of their family fortunes. I have to say that Bruce and Steve have come up with a beautiful 10-hour epic film, which will be episodically divided into 10 episodes. But it's a 10-hour movie, and it's absolutely beautifully written. It's original. It is not a copy of a copy of a copy. It's brand new, astonishing, and thrilling to breathe life into their language and their gestures. The House of Sand and Fog. I know one's not supposed to have favourites, so I won't say anything. But working again with a first-time director was thrilling. And again, he was a great patriarch. I love playing brave, fearless, tribal father figures. I find it empowering and necessary as a story to tell people. And I found him absolutely heroic, capable of feats of great endurance, great resilience, and crushing grief, and finally taking his own life. Jennifer was a wonderful colleague to work with. Our scenes were like a duet. It was beautiful working with her. She made herself very vulnerable. We all did. We had to be vulnerable to the bigger picture, the greater story. Very pure, very beautiful story. It's a story about aspiration, achieving your goal, and then suffering terrible loss. Shutter Island. That was my first experience with Marty, and he had a very fine grasp on exactly where we were in the picture, because it's a story within a story within a story. And at first you think possibly one could construe my character as a rather dark, sinister force. And then you realize as my character evolves that he actually, as a psychiatrist, embodies unconditional love, that he would do anything to save and cure that patient, even if it meant going into hell with him and guiding him through hell and out again.
Then blast away, because that's the only way you're ever getting off this island.
Andrew, please don't.
Leo's character decides that he's having the symptoms of the recurring nightmare yet again, and decides to have himself lobotomized, which is a kind of suicide. So again, we're dealing with very pure, archetypal characters. They're not copies of a copy of a copy of a copy. They're utterly original and thrilling. And I believe it was one of Marty's most successful films at the box office. And it was a joy to be with him. Hugo. To play a director, directed by a great director, was challenging and thrilling and exhilarating, and I was very honoured that he'd chosen me to play one of clearly his great heroes of cinema. As you know, he's passionate about saving every fragment of motion picture footage that's available on the face of the earth. He restores this fading, corroding image of our beautiful industry and past and craft. Again, it's a pure piece of mythology where my character, Georges, has his years in the wilderness, rather like a biblical character.
Stop! This is your work! My work? What am I? Nothing but a penniless merchant, a broken, wind-up toy.
And then after years in the wilderness, rather like the tablets from heaven, his films are rediscovered, placed back into his hands, screened again to great applause, and he ended his days, I think, as a very grateful and happy man. And the story, again, rather like a patriarch, the story of him guiding the little boy through life and the boy guiding him, which is beautiful, is another wonderful layer that Scorsese, in his depth of imagination, is aware of.
I am standing before you tonight because of one very brave young man.
I think that if I can see on the page that the writer, director has a genuine grasp of patterns of human behavior, and I can recognize, that's a real dance, then I'm on board. If again, I'm sorry to use this phrase, but it haunts me a bit. If it's a copy of a copy of a copy, I can smell it immediately, I'm not interested. Originality, purity, and something that has its roots in something eternal.